Hello, and welcome to this tutorial on editing citation entries in Zotero. So Zotero does a pretty good job of scraping PDF metadata and using its connector to scrape metadata off of a website, and even importing things through an RES file pretty well. But it's still a garbage in, garbage out principle. So if the data is entered wrong on any of those sites and it doesn't quite come in correctly with those, the citation will be wrong when you actually are going to put it into a bibliography or a works cited list. Okay. So you're able to edit any citation. You can, click on entry line. There's other kind of tools that we'll show you in a second that can help you with this. But it is always a good idea to double check information is correct. Zotero does not verify this information for you. You have to do a little bit of the work yourself. So let's get into doing some checking of the citations that are in my video demos library here in Zotero. So the first thing that I always check, and this is something that Zotero suggests that you do as well, is to make sure that your title of your journal article, your book, whatever it is in sentence case. So sentence case means that the first word of the title is capitalized and then any other kind of subheading. Why we suggest you do this is because Zotero and other citation managers, truthfully, are not really good at recognizing what is a proper noun or what is supposed to be an acronym. So in this case, we really don't have any proper nouns that we need to worry about in any case. And instead of, going through and backspacing and making sure kind of one by one the words are like this, there's this little 3 dots over on the side, and you can click that. These little 3 dots, and it will say, hey, do you want this to be in title case or sentence case? And I say sentence case. Changes everything for me, which is wonderful, right? So with one click, I can do this. Let me show you an example that you still will have to do a little bit of editing with this. So in case I want to put this in sentence case, but I know COVID is actually an acronym here. I will still have to do a little bit of editing. I've also noticed with some subtitles, it often doesn't recognize like the first word after a colon. So just be aware that you will still have to do a little bit of cleanup work even after using the tool that's there. The next thing that I like to really kind of check here is the author. So actually in this case, we see that the author here, only their first initial came in. So I actually switched over here to the database where I found it, and I'm looking at the PDF, and we say, oh, the first name is not M, it is this name. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that and then go back into Zotero here and paste that in. Checking to make sure that all of the authors came in correctly is a good idea. So if I go back to this, to where I found this article, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm also seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have the right number, but I've noticed that this first author here, Shahoy, is not in the same order as everything. And you'll notice that there's this little option to switch to 2 fields, and I can click that. It says, okay, here's their last name and here's their first name. Sometimes it will just get an author completely wrong. So for example, in this case, Gallup is not an individual person. It needs to be a group author. So again, I can switch to a single field this time to kind of help with that. You should also pay attention to the role that is given to the author or creator. So in this case, this is an edited book. And so these aren't the authors, these are actually going to be editors. And this will come into play if you are actually not just citing a book, but something like a book section, so a chapter of a book, for example, where you are going to have to really pay attention to, who the author or creator is and what their role is. The next thing that I always check for is going to be, is there a DOI or did I just bring in a URL? And is that URL correct? Okay. So in this case, I did not actually bring in a DOI with a journal article. And that is very unusual, especially for more recently published academic journals. Most of them will come with a DOI here. I also noticed that I pulled in a URL that has this proxy on it, and in a lot of citation styles, they don't want you to have your specific library's proxy on it because it will affect how people who are not associated with your library can actually access it. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and double check to see if I see a DOI. So I'm not seeing the DOI here on this page initially. So I'm going to go ahead and double check on the PDF. If you're not seeing something on an entry in a database or a search engine, it's always a good idea to check the full text of the article. And in fact, I do see that there is a DOI here. So I'm going to try to copy this. And if it doesn't work, I'm just going to grab it from my web browser up at the top here, or I could grab it from here. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste that into Zotero. Again, you don't need the HTTP, everything else there. And since I don't want this URL here, I want to go directly to that DOI, I'm going to take that out. Another thing that I always check for are going to be page numbers, right? So in this case, again, Shohoi did not come in with any page numbers. So if I go back to this option here, if I go back to the full text, I can see if there is an article number or a page number, and I'm not seeing anything on this page. So if I look at the full text, I see, okay, it goes 1 through 14. So I'm going to go back in here and type in pages 1 through 14 just so that I have that information. So let's take another look at an example that you might see quite often. So in this case with Lee here, we'll see that there is a page number that came in, but it's actually an article number. This article numbers are becoming more common because a lot of journals aren't published in a complete volume in a physical medium anymore, and so they have a distinct article number rather than pages. And so sometimes there's extra information that kind of comes in, so I don't need to take, I'm going to take out the -NA there. Another thing to look for is that some of these article numbers actually look a little weird. So in this case, we have this EADG 1036. I'm like, is that a mistake? What is going on here? So I want to double check this against the full text of the PDF, and I'm looking to see, oh, okay, so that number is available here. Even though there is a 1 through 10 page number, this kind of article number is going to supersede that. Let's take a look at some less common examples, but things that you still need to pay attention to. So I was trying to use the Zotero connector to cite this statute from the machine compiled laws, and you'll notice that it came in as a web page. So I actually need to change the entire item type that this is into a statute. It's going to give me different items that I'm going to need to actually fill in here. And so this is going to necessitate a little bit more cleanup in the future if I'm going to actually use Zotero to cite this statute correctly. Some of the times there's just some minor information that you need to kind of look at. So for this book, again, this is actually an edited book, and I need the volume information here, and I don't see it. But if I scroll down, it actually came in as a note, which is interesting. So again, depending on which book I'm using, I'm actually going to grab and either cut or copy this out here and then go back into the item information here and put in volume 1, for example. And and actually include the title there, because I do know that if I'm using APA, I need that title and the volume title information in there as well. So sometimes information comes in kind of a weird location, especially if you're using an RIS file transfer or like the connector to grab things. One thing I've noticed with YouTube videos specifically is that the YouTube itself kind of comes in in the library catalog. And the library catalog really does not show up in a lot of bibliographic citations. Like when I would send this out and create an APA bibliography, for example, the YouTube wouldn't show up if it was in this library catalog. However, I'm going to cut it out of library catalog, and I'm going to go up to Studio and put it in there. And that will make sure that I have YouTube as kind of the publisher, the platform that this video is actually being recorded on. You can also do things like add information. For example, on this con item, I did not actually pull in any attachment here, so like either a link out or the full text. So I can actually make sure, hey, I want to either put in a new web link, a linked file, so that it's somewhere on, so that it's saved somewhere on my computer and I just link out to it. Or I can just upload an entire file and it will open up my downloads folder. And then I can attach it and have that PDF in here so that I'm able to take notes and do a whole bunch of other things within this PDF. This is great for doing individual citations, but sometimes you might accidentally add multiple citations in here that are the same. So you'll notice I have 2 are new articles here, both from 2025, and I can go back and forth between them to say, oh, there are some differences, right? Like there's extra information here versus this one, which doesn't have as much information, and some of the information might not be as correct. And so I could, go back and forth and figure it out myself and then delete it out. However, Zotero has a lovely option here to find duplicate items. And in this case, there are a number of things in my library that actually need to be paid attention to. But in this case, I can go here and I can look again in between things. So again, like the place, for example, is changed around. There's a little bit less information on like the DOI and stuff on one. And I can actually merge the two items. So instead of having multiple ones or multiple duplicates in my library, I now just have the one article, and it has pulled all that information in that I needed. So let's take a look at actually kind of fixing some information that did not get pulled in correctly. So we're going to go back to this Michigan compiled law statute. And again, this is one that I tried to grab with a connector, and it came in initially as a web page. So I need to kind of really fix this to make sure that everything is correct. So I can already see that there's a section number here that I'm going to cut out, and I'm going to put in the session, or paste in there. And then I'm going to need to put in the code, which is going to be the Michigan compiled laws, right? Then I might have to find the actual name of the act, so I'm going to scoot back over here and grab this from the title and paste that in here. And again, I can use things like putting it in a sentence case to make sure that that capitalization goes completely away. And again, if there's any things like a history session, public law number, especially for things like a federal statute, I might want to do that. So I actually see that it's Act 11 of 2025. So that might actually be what I want to put in here. You need to have some knowledge of what information is needed to cite an item correctly. So double checking against whatever manual you're going to be using, whether that's the APA manual, Chicago style, AMA, whatever it is, to know the kind of information that you want to look at. And particularly with legal information, going back to what's called the Blue Book. It's a book of legal citations, and most other citation manuals will kind of point you back to that one. Another issue that I often see is that if you just upload a PDF to Zotero and have it try to kind of scrape metadata, with some it works really well. I've seen a lot of great results with like just upping it or just adding a journal article to Zotero, but I often see issues, especially with things like a newspaper title, that don't necessarily go well. So we see here's the attachment information, and you'll see that it has like a title and everything else. But when I go to the item information, it's saying that this is a journal article, and we know that's not right. This is a newspaper article that I'm looking at here. The title has the Flint Journal as, the paper, not the article title. So I'm going to need to cut this out here and put that in the publication. Okay. And again, I can use the little tool here to make this sentence case, though I might actually want to make this the Flint Journal here. Okay. I have the date here, so I can go ahead and cut that out and paste that down into the date section. It also has page 6, so I can put that in page 6. There's no URL attached with it, so I might have to go back into wherever I found this article and put that in there as well. I also don't have the author, and it did not come in with the title, so I'm actually going to need to go back in to get the title and author information that I need. Hopefully I would be able to, copy and paste from a PDF, but there's some issue that's going on here. So I'm actually going to need to type this in, and I'm just going to do the, here, I'm going to split that into things. And again, I might have to update this, and I would go ahead and make sure that title is correct. A final thing that you are going to want to kind of pay attention to is, looking at all the kind of extra information that comes in with articles and other things. So for example, on the Shahoy article, I can scroll down now that I fixed a lot of what was going on down below, I can see that I came in with a couple of full text HTML attachments. There's a note here, and there's also a lot of tags. So for example, if I did not want this note, because I don't care that it was last updated on this date, I can go ahead and delete that note. With these full text HTML attachments, I might actually want to follow them to see if they actually take me to something that is useful. So with this first one, I might actually go ahead and go in and edit this so that I know what link it's going to. So this is quick search link, right? So, and I can go forward and, mess and change these two if I want to as well, or delete them out since they're kind of extra. The last thing that you might want to use, especially if you're using tags as kind of an organizational structure, is to delete out the tags that are kind of coming in with these titles. Typically, tags are subjects or keywords that are kind of associated with items. So if you're only, searching in a particular database and coming in, that's fine and you want to keep them. But if you don't, they tend to kind of open up and add in a lot of different tags that you don't necessarily want to use. And some of them are kind of nonsensical. So there's like these items here, but there's also, multiple things for bacterial infections that are kind of coming in with like a PubMed option. So you can delete them one by one. Or if you really don't want to deal with tags at all that are not created by you, you can go up to Zotero settings, and then down below in this kind of miscellaneous section, you can unclick this automatically tag items option so that when you import or items with an RIS file or grab them from a Zotero connector or some other kind of way that you're pulling things in, those tags won't appear. So again, if you're trying to kind of use tags as an organizational system, this might be something that you want to do. Now, checking that won't take away tags that are already in here. So again, just kind of keeping that in mind going forward, whether or not you need these extra notes or these extra tags that are kind of that often come in with items that you don't put in manually yourself. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask a librarian or check out Zotero's documentation. And thank you for watching.